What's up, guys? I wanted to go ahead and come to you guys and talk about something in terms of attention in life and creation. We're going to talk about maybe the racial dynamic or the cultural dynamic here in America. And we're also going to go over how things are brought into existence and exactly what the balance and harmony is. I'm going to go ahead and break down some things in the Egyptian pantheon and the mythology of what they're talking about and what it means. So, and if you don't know, I own plenty of books on Egyptology and translations of the work, and I took my time to actually decode and understand what they're trying to tell you. So, I'll break it down to you and give you an understanding of what they're talking about and helping you understand the universal
All right,
principles.
so look, before we begin, I wanted to go ahead and give you guys like a quick understanding and a visual interpretation that you guys can understand these Egyptian gods through. So number one, you're going to learn about Nun and Atum. Understand that Nun is primordial darkness. He's the start of dark, essentially, and everything is birthed from darkness. So here's why I use this depiction of this Egyptian god here opening his palm, and then that is Atum inside his hand. Next, I'm going to explain to you who Set is. Set is chaos and order, raw power, conflict, and strength and independence. That's what he represents, and that's why I have him fighting fighting all by himself and defeating enemies, as you can see through this depiction. Then we have Horus, who represents community, moral clarity, renewal, balance, and that's what he represents here, and that's why the people are gathered around him. And then the solar bark in which the two of them are on. And you see that Set is the one fighting off the snake because he is the one that will make sure that this boat gets to where it needs to go, while Horus is the one, and now he's raw because he's transformed. He will make sure that it has a purpose of where it's going. So he's setting the course and basically giving him the direction on where to go. They work harmoniously, so that you now understand this.
Because to learn, look, Albert Einstein, before he passed away, he was trying to solve the theory of everything. Essentially, if you can solve the theory of everything, then you can basically teach a person anything, and it relates to the thing that they're learning at that moment. So there is a universal lesson that exists, and I wanted to go ahead and kind of give you guys a little bit of like a piece of the equation that can apply to your life personally. So here we go. In the Egyptian pantheon, in the beginning, there was Nun, okay? Represents the primordial waters. And if you don't know what primordial means, that means the start, the very beginning. So the start of darkness, okay? When you see him, he has in him depicted waves in his body, representing like water. And then you have Atum. Atum represents self-creation, all right? And it's depicted as the nothingness, right? The water and the emergence of like a mound or an island being built on there. Now, why is this? If you talk to scientists, they believe that we came from the bottom of the sea. And in fact, that's why they're so interested in going to the bottom of the sea, because going to the bottom of the sea will tell us a lot about species, maybe even tell us a lot about ourselves, but it's so difficult to go to the bottom of the sea. The start of darkness. No light penetrates through the bottom of the sea. It is dark, 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 and all that immense pressure, we can't imagine what's underneath there. We know more about what's up in the top here, and we have not really discovered much of what's at the bottom of that sea, but we know things exist. We do. So in this, if we take this here, okay, what it's telling you is everything begins in darkness, and everything is self-created from darkness. So from darkness, things are self-created, because Atum comes out of Nun, all right? In other words, the creation comes from darkness. So with that being said, this means anything that you suppress, and the longer you suppress it, the bigger this mound, this island that's about to be erected shall become. Because it may explode and really be something huge and big, because you delayed the reaction of self-creation. So the self-creation doesn't stop. It's going to come. It's a force in nature. Things have to be self-created. If you look at the Big Bang is what is it? Cosmic pressure that creates a star, and that one point in boom, then emerges a universe, a galaxy. So when you look at this, everything has to be self-created, and the longer you suppress that, it's going to explode. All right, you're going to have a bigger problem on your hand than you thought you did. So if I limited your expression, okay, if I limited your expression as an example, and I'll relate it to you. If I say, you can't express yourself, like, you can't express yourself, like, hey, stop expressing yourself, stop expressing yourself. At some point in time, that self-expression of how you feel, the way it comes out, is going to transmutate and turn into something. It may turn into a piece of art. It may turn into a form of a thought. But nonetheless, something will come out of that because I delayed you expressing yourself. So what once was probably going to be common, now I put into the darkness. And when it's self-created, because you self-created it, all right, you self-created it. Once it emerges from the darkness, because it has to, everything has to come from darkness. So it can't sit there forever. It has to come out. It may be a new thing, a new self-creation. All right, so we're going to get into this next thing. And this is why I have here the wave of water. Okay, so you can see I have like a wave of water here. And I have a mound erected and a guy standing on top of it. Okay. So this is to give you like an understanding of what they knew. Everything is emerged from darkness. Now, we have here, I'm going to talk about Horus, okay? Set. Horus and Set. Set is Horus's uncle, all right? Set killed Osiris, which is Horus's father, all right? He wants to revenge his father. They both represent two different things. In the Battle of the Pantheon, Horus fights Set. And in the end, the gods ruled that they're both needed to exist. They need both of them to exist. So none of them kill each other. So Set doesn't kill Horus. Horus doesn't kill Set. All right. With this being said, since they both exist, the thing that they came to the decision of is that Horus will rule the inner world while Set rules the outer world with his bark, guarding things off. And in fact, they actually work together because now we get into the solar bark. So as Horus, who now turns into Ra, that's when he has that sun disk above his head, because Horus and Ra are the same. It's just an evolutionary step of who Horus is. It's like a new game plus, essentially. So he has completed his cycle. Now he has leveled up, and now he is Ra. So like in a video game analogy, Horus has leveled up, and now he is Ra. He has a sun disk above his head. Horus and Set, they go on what they call the solar bark, and they take a journey into the Duat. And as they go through the journey, they will emerge and come back around. Here on this picture, I have a boat, right? So I have, this is Horus right here on a boat, okay? And Set is the boat. He controls the boat, all right? They represent two different things. A boat represents control. It guides you through your journey, setting course and taking you down a direction, all right? While Horus represents the person, the community, the purpose that we're there. See, a boat does not have purpose, okay? You can have a boat in water, and it does not have purpose unless you put a person onto it, and then the person decides where the boat goes, and the boat takes them. Because the boat has the control and the ability to be above the water. See where I'm going here? So, they have two different ideologies, and I'm putting this in your mind so that you can understand what they both mean. Because it's super important that you understand what they represent in principle, because these are universal principles. You do have anything in life, right? You have, look, and we'll break it down. If I gave you a pencil is a structured form of something you can draw something with, or you can do anything with. Now, you can either write down notes with it, you can draw a picture, but the purpose is based upon the individual I put it in the hand of. So it's this dual process in life, right? Where here's an object, and the person who picks it up gives it purpose. And that's who Set represents. He represents the pencil. Horus represents the individual who picks up the pencil and can write with it, or can draw with it, whatever he gives that pencil purpose to do. The pencil will guide him in the ability to do that. So now you understand, okay? So let's go into what they both represent now in terms of when it comes to society, all right? So Horus is vision. He represents vision, moral clarity, renewal, balance, ma'at. In other words, ma'at just represents balance. So I'll get to that one day. And community. While Set represents chaos and order. He represents chaos and order. So because chaos and order are basically one and the same, essentially. Raw power, conflict, strength, independence. That's what Set represents. Now let's go into this concept of something that's really interesting. I had this thought, and I was like, what's really interesting with America? The situation of America is quite fascinating in terms of its history, because it's this culture, the African American culture, that has birthed so much: jazz, hip hop, rock and roll, stand-up music, country. It emerged so many things that a lot of the world adapts, and I just thought that was really interesting because I was like, when have we had that in a while? And then I started to look into the history, and I was like, what's interesting? In the Egyptian pantheon, it explains why the African American culture birthed so many of these new things. And if other cultures or if other people are looking to birth new things, they have to understand the principles that govern for new to come in. So if you're a person, you're interested in having an impact on the world or doing something, I'm going to explain that to you now, okay? But I'm going to use the African American culture as a way of teaching you this because it is the most recent example. Where as many things died out, this one is holding pretty steady, and it continues to show very promising signs that it'll continue to keep doing this. And I'll explain. Noon, all right, starts from darkness. Now, if we think about it, look, from my understanding, there's a lot of critiques on the African American community that people give to them. But what's really interesting is they totally don't acknowledge a lot of the things that they do. Take, for instance, they may say like low IQs, and I'm like, well, that's interesting because to create music takes pattern recognition. So that's a pattern recognition art form, and if IQ is based upon pattern recognition, we have to understand that. Also, suppression. African Americans tend to be the most adaptable, all right? They have what they call a white voice. I don't know if you have any black friends, but black people have a white voice, which essentially means is that they adapt themselves as a form of survival to be able to survive and thrive within the world. I don't know of other cultures that use what they call a white voice, but I definitely do know that African Americans, they have a white voice. And with that being said, that's a suppression of expression. Remember, everything is born from darkness, and this self-creation process is being suppressed. Also, they have there's a history of them being stripped of their history and them going through the process of finding it. More darkness, and we're throwing more and more darkness. Remember, what's at the bottom of that sea, bottom of that water, has the most amount of pressure on it. The deeper you go into water, the more pressure that thing has, which arguably would say that there would be a very strong species if it emerged. It would be a very strong self-creation, a very strong force in the world, hence why hip-hop, jazz, rock and roll is such a cultural export for every culture. More darkness, I'll give you more darkness, and we'll throw it on, and you can kind of get the concept of what this concept of darkness creates, or what gets emerged out of it. Take, for instance, rock and roll, okay? Rock and roll was created by the African American community. If you do your research, you'll find out that before it became accepted by white America, it was seen as the devil's music. It was like, don't listen to it, it's not good. Then Elvis adopted it, and then all of a sudden, everyone said it's great because now it was in the white image. And follow me here. It really listen with your heart. And pass through the lesson, because the lesson, if you're a person, you say, oh, I got to get over it. I'm not even talking about getting over it. I'm just talking about darkness. So just hoping people follow me here. They essentially had a self-expression and wanted to express themselves, but were stripped from the ability to be acknowledged, which added more darkness, because when they did it, it was bad. When someone else did it, it was good, which essentially is more suppression. You're putting them deeper into the darkness. Once they were let go from slavery, they were given nothing at all, and essentially were just told to figure things out. That's more darkness. We go to the over-policing of the culture. I've traveled I've traveled to many countries, and I can tell you, every country is like, they got their issues. They really do, and they don't talk about it. But for some reason, the African Americans' issues are brought up a lot in terms of when it comes to America. Now, hey, I don't know why, but if people were being very fair, everyone has their issues, and no one's above it at all. And in fact, some cultures might even have worse ones. And take, for instance, like if we just take a look at, I think it's Venezuela. They recently had to lock up a lot of gang members and create an entire jail. And this is recently done. But in the time span of all this bad stuff being done, no one ever criticized them heavily in the process of all this gang violence and treachery. So it's interesting, the African Americans were still a topic around a time when you had other countries and other people of other nations and all around the world, wherever you were on this little dirt speck in the universe, they were the ones honed in on. More darkness added to them. So, I'm giving you this understanding that the deeper you go, the more darker you suppress them, when they do create, it's going to be immense each and every single time. And this is what brings new in. I'll give one last example. Another example I find very interesting is that when it comes to the African American identity, we don't know much about it. They stripped them from their history, and they told them that they came on slave boats, which, if we do the history of it, it's a lot of interesting gaps there. Take, for instance, I'll go even deeper to this. They're completely told what to believe by the people who suppressed them. But that's arguably more suppression. So they're just being suppressed in every way, shape, form, and way, and from many directions. But that is what creates creation, because that is what creates a Big Bang, essentially, cosmic pressure. So now let's move on and follow me here. You'll get this. So in America, we have these two separate ideologies. We have the Horus ideology and the Set ideology. Both are needed to exist, though, for creation. And in America, this is the most interesting one, because it's been holding up for long enough that it has become a superpower. And if you think about American culture, if you ask yourself, what was American culture before African Americans integrated into the culture and weren't slaves? Ask yourself, what was it? And then what was it after? And what does the world recognize America for? A lot of it will be from the self-creation of the African Americans. And I'll tell you why, and this explains it very well. You see, the Horus philosophy, the African American community represents something very interesting. They represent vision, all right? Look, even Martin Luther King said, "I had a dream." They represent vision, moral clarity. When it came to the civil rights movement, African Americans weren't fighting for themselves to be treated equally. They were fighting for everyone to be treated equally, essentially. So that's moral clarity, renewal. They had to become new people. So when let go from slavery, they had to rebuild an identity because they were in darkness. They had to make one. They had to create one. So renewal, which in other words, the word renewal also means new. So a lot of new things came from there. Country, jazz, hip hop, rock and roll, stand-up comedy, a lot of new things came from that. The swag, the culture, the slang, a lot of new things came from that. Balance, this concept of, hey, what is right is right. If you look at I'll give you a whole way to look at it. Around the time the civil rights movement was going on, we also had the hippie movement. And the hippie movement preached love and peace. But the irony is The hippie movement did not pass any bills. The hippie movement wasn't fighting for civil rights. The hippie movement was fighting for a lifestyle, essentially. It was a divergence from their culture, which many of the hippies were of white American, descent, and they adopted other cultures, Bohemian culture and other cultures, Hinduism and things of that nature, to make a culture by parting away from the one that they had. So essentially, they didn't represent moral clarity nor balance. They represented another force, and I'll explain that on the other side, and community. I think the African American community, sometimes they talk to each other and they act as if like they don't have community. But I'm like, if you didn't have community, why do so many black people show up to support a comedian that they love? This has been historical throughout time. Why do we support each other when it comes to our artistic endeavors? Because a lot of these things would not be popular in the world if we did not support each other. That makes no sense. We do have great community because that's how we're able to get so much new stuff to the world. That this makes no sense. We have amazing community. So in terms of that, that's completely asinine. And I'll tell you why, because that's actually more suppression. Because if you follow the pattern, this here historically has been the history of America, usually for the African American. But now I'll say America, I'm going to use white America, represents Set. So let me break this down. It represents chaos and order, which essentially is control. So when you look at white American culture, it's about control. It's about raw power, asserting dominance and force, conflict, essentially looking for where there's friction and creating it. And I'm not saying this in a sense with just African Americans. I'm saying this is the culture in general, because chaos and order, America has fought many civil wars that African Americans had nothing to do about it. It had nothing to do about them. Conflict, the fighting between the Republicans and Democrats, the people of the North and the people of the South in the Civil War. It was started on conflict with the Tea Party and trying to get away from paying Britain. Strength, essentially asserting power over people. We can see this through slavery. We can see this through the philosophy of relationships. It's about strength and this concept of strength and asserting that over people or things. And that's a philosophy. It's needed. Remember, I'm not saying any of this is good or bad. I'm saying it's all needed, and this is what's creating this awesome dynamic in America where we are a cultural superforce. And independence is based on independence. Now, note I said over here is on community, independence. And I think we don't realize something that's really interesting with white American culture is that it's really based on independence. Remember, they celebrate Independence Day, not Community Day. And if you look at Juneteenth, right? That's more of a community day. It's really, if you ask white people in their mind, it's considered as like, we are all free. We are all free together. Where this one says Independence Day, we are all independent. We are all individuals. We are all independent together. We are all collectively free. It's even in the mirroring of what they celebrate. Like right there. And in fact, if you look at the cultures, this is why a lot of newness doesn't come from this culture here, because here in a culture where things are independent, you're going to get things like more like Spider-Man 1, 2, 3. People will watch remakes of movies. I had just recently went to go see, what was it? It was the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere in Las Vegas. And it was a remake. It was the same old movie, but I mean, the amount of people that showed up, particularly white Americans, showed up. They loved it. And it was just a remake. Where if you look at anything in African American culture, they're not going to make a remake of an African American film, because African Americans, they really do appreciate a level of novelty. Take, for instance, there's a filmmaker, Jordan Peele, who made Get Out, an original movie, Us, an original movie, Sinners, made by Ryan Coogler, an original movie, and we tend to be more so on that. And the reason being is because we have so much suppression that there's so much self-creation that needs to be done. Now, let me give you the understanding. that these two are needed, and this is the awesome dynamic, because here is this chaos and order, this control that goes on. See, Set tries to assert himself over Horus, and the thing is, this control can only be there for so long. If Horus, does well and fight back Set, then the fight should go on for a while, and it should actually create a harmonious effort in society, to where they're now going down a journey together, essentially. If when the fight is over, if they've done this well, they should be going on a journey together, where now Set represents the boat, he represents the control, the force that will guide him. Horus will represent the vision, clarity, and give things purpose as it gives it direction. And that has really been the efforts of America, if you look at it, where here's this system that was built by colonial forces, essentially, and put into place, and it was built off of chaos and order, raw power, conflict, strength, and independence. It was built off of that, where they brought these people or enslaved these people, whichever one you believe. Look, they essentially had these people, and these people represented the vision, moral clarity, renewal. Hey, we got to do something new here. The balance, things are not balanced. The community effort, bringing people together. And this part here is super duper important to the building of America, in the sense that what would America have been if it continued to keep being this way? It was just raw power, strength, independence. It would never have this community effort that you feel sometimes, that you have the nostalgicness of. Take, for instance, ask your parents around like the 1970s how much community they felt. And around that time, that was around kind of getting out of the civil rights era. We were kind of living in that perfectly. And you see, I think it was for 80 years, Set and Horus ruled. So if we look at the cycle of things, there was a moment in time we all felt in harmony. Now, I'm not saying it was perfect, but I'm saying that's where the nostalgic moments come from, and also this era of all this creation came from. So them two riding with each other for 80 years. So I wanted to just give you that there as like a foundational principle. Everything in life needs that. You'll find the best business partners are, one of my business partners is a guy named Mitchell, my homeboy. Funny, white dude too. What up, Mitchell? I think he represents Set pretty well. Chaos and order, raw power, conflict, strength, independence. In terms of his thinking, he's a very structured guy. He's very, very structured. Where I'm more so on this end, the vision, the renewal, moral clarity, balance, community. Like, I understand the human dynamic, where he understands the part that keeps the humans in. You see what I mean? And that is important to everything in life. When these two work together here, things shall go harmoniously. This will be the effort of self-creation, because one puts pressure on the other and it creates something new. He might need to create a new structure of control and balance and chaos and order, and I may need to create a new vision. But the two of them conflict each other, creating this cosmic pressure, essentially giving it new creation. So I wanted to go ahead and just give that to you guys and help you understand. So hope you enjoy this video.